There's an overused phrase that money doesn't buy you happiness, but you know what? It sure can buy you freedom. And if freedom's what you're looking for, today's video is for you, because while for many of us retirement is an age, 65 typically in the United States, it doesn't have to be an age, right? It's really an amount in your bank account or an ability to produce income to fund your living expenses. So let's go for a walk and let's talk about 5 habits that will make all of that a lot easier and give you the opportunity to retire early if that's what you want to do. Okay, the first one is, really getting a feel for what your expenses are. How much do you spend every year, and how much do you need to spend? How much of what you spend right now is actually bringing you joy and giving you the life that you want, as opposed to, just buying stuff that maybe doesn't give you joy. So for me, for instance, I'm traveling today. And so traveling and experiencing other cultures is something that gives me a great amount of joy. So, that's something that I want to keep in my budget. That retirement to me means doing more of this, not less of this. But there may be some things in your life that, you're spending and you're saying, why am I doing this? It's not giving me a lot of joy. Maybe eating out more often or driving a new car every 2 or 3 years. Yes, the joy's there when you first get the car, you pick up the car, you drive it home, it smells like a new car. And I'm just giving examples. This is your money. None of this is prescriptive. It's just the idea of being deliberate and thoughtful on how you're spending your money, and maybe places that you can spend your money that give you more joy and gets the most impact out of the money that you're spending. So get a feel for what your expenses are. Now, regular listeners of the channel know that I'm not a big fan of detailed budgeting. I think it's enough to just high level get a feel for what you're spending. And one way to do that is put $10,000 into a checking account and pay all of your bills out of that checking account. And at the end of the month, see how much you have. And then look through the things that you spent your money on and say, what did I really get joy out of it? Keep the things that are giving you joy and maybe consider cutting back on the things that are not, okay? And then look at the savings. How much are you saving? Now, again, it's not enough to just save. You have to invest. And the goal is at some point for the dollars in your account to be working for you as hard as you were working and producing an income so that you can retire. So it's not enough to just save. Boy, it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to reach most people's financial goals if all of their money is in an FDIC insured bank account. For most of us, we have to earn a return that's greater than inflation. Now, this is not financial advice. Again, the goal of all of my videos is education and to put things on your radar screen for you to think about. So, think about what the right asset allocation is. And for most people, to beat inflation, they probably need to have about 1/3 of their money or more in things like stocks, things that what I call risk assets. Maybe it's real estate, whatever it might be. Okay, so number 1 is to get a feel of your expenses. Number 2 is to save. Number 3 is it's not enough to just save. Sorry, there was a stare there. It's not enough to just save. You also have to invest your money along the way. The next thing I want to talk about, again, is another saying that's common, but perfect is the enemy of good enough, right? We can spend a lot of time educating ourselves and getting information, but really thinking through action. What steps can you be taking? One of the things I talk a lot about on my channel is the value of working with a good fee-only financial advisor or a good accountant, and to have a plan. But just having a plan is not enough, right? You actually need to take action, and you need to start doing these things. And part of what I encourage people to start doing is thinking about, You know, what does retirement look like for them? What are they going to be excited doing? You know, I enjoy travel, but I can tell you, as somebody that's been a financial advisor for 20 years, when I ask a person, what do you plan to do in retirement? The two most common answers that I get, and you can guess what they are. Number one is travel, and number two is spend time with the grandkids, both of which are great things to do. But they tend to be the default answer. And so when I get those replies, I'll often push back a little bit and just make sure, you know, have you really done the homework to think about what you want to do in retirement, how you're going to spend that time? Because, you know, when we travel now, most of us get to travel for a week, if we're lucky 2 weeks. So it tends to be a short amount of time. But once you're retired, you're going to have all the time in the world in front of you. So just really thinking through what it is that you want to do. So perfect is the enemy of good enough. I really want to encourage you, if you're married, to start talking to your spouse. What does it look like? What does retirement look like to you? And what are you excited about spending your time? So admittedly, you know, this video is on money habits, and that's getting off of the strict definition of money habits, but it's really important as you prepare for retirement. Okay, the next one is, you know, what adjustments, what trade-offs are you willing to make to get the life that you want, right? For some people, like one of the things that's on my radar screen when I retire is renting out my house or selling my house. For some people, that's an absolute no. They have absolutely no interest in doing it, and that's fine. But what are the things that you're willing to trade off? If I told you could retire 5 years early, you could retire at 55 instead of 60, or at 60 instead of 65, what are the trade-offs you'd be willing to do? Would you be willing to, your next car, buy a used car instead of a new car? Would you maybe be willing to rent out your house if it meant that you could retire 5 years early and travel? Would you be willing to live in a foreign country? There's millions of Americans that are expats living in other countries. Is that something that would be interesting to you? And before, you know, the default for most Americans would be to say, no, of course I'm not willing to do that. But I would encourage you to travel to some of these places that have a large expat community, places in Europe, places in Southeast Asia. Taiwan would be a tough move for a lot of people just because the culture is so different, the language is so different. Singapore would be a lot easier of a move. There'd be a challenge with a visa situation there, but just think through what the trade-offs are that you're willing to do in order to retire early. And then I also want you to think about the things that you're doing now that might be robbing joy from your life. You know, if you're watching videos about getting ready to retire early, you've likely sacrificed for a long time. You've worked for a long time. And that's what this video up here is about, is the 8 things to stop doing as you approach your 50s, as you're in your 50s and 60s, to enjoy life more. So watch that video. It's an important part 2 to this video. And thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.